Welcome! Today I'm going to be talking to you about the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Yep, if you want to get beautiful quilt blocks with as many blocks and seams like this and have all your points match and everything line up and have the block end up being the size it's supposed to be, then this video is for you. Hi, I'm Wendy Haney and I love quilting. So I want to share my love of quilting with others and taking what I've learned a lot of times the hard way. I've had plenty of people to lead me and guide me along the way, but a lot of it I've learned as I've gone along. And so I'm here to get you started so you can get started faster and make those beautiful quilts you want. So let's get to it. The two things that are going to make you getting a block like this and having it turn out right and be the right size is cutting, which I talked about last week. Accurate cutting is critical. But the other thing that is just as critical is your 1/4 inch seam allowance. Yep, and everybody talks about that scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. Yep, and the reason we talk about the scant one is because your seam allowance is not just about a 1/4 inch, because once you get two pieces of fabric together, you now include a little bit of weight, a little bit of width, when you fold the fabric over and you got that fold of the fabric. The other thing that comes into play is your thread. I like to use a 50 weight thread. Madeira Katona thread is what I use. Now, if you're not using a 50 weight thread, which is fairly fine, it's a great one for piecing because you're not going to lose a lot of width, if you will, in your seam for your thread. But if you're using a 30 or a 40 weight thread, those are thicker threads. Therefore, you need to even be more scant, a little bit under a 1/4 inch seam. All of those come into play when you're trying to be piecing accurately. Okay, so I happen to be working on a Baby Lock Symphony. In the past, I was using a Singer sewing machine, nothing very fancy. So it really doesn't matter what you have. The key thing is there's a couple different ways you can use to get a 1/4 inch seam on your machine. It's just about figuring out how and then testing it and making sure you truly are getting a 1/4 inch. So you went out to the store, you got a new sewing machine, got a basic one. Okay, no big deal. Got a really nice one, a more electronic one. That's fine too. Most of them come with a basic presser foot. Basic presser foot. And a lot of people may think that, oh, great, I'm going to start sewing, I'm going to put this on my sewing machine, and I'm going to use the edge of the foot, and that's my 1/4 inch seam. Sorry, it's not going to work that way. Sewing machines are used for a lot more than quilting. Quilting uses a 1/4 inch seam, but if you're sewing clothes, you use a 5/8 inch seam. Yep. So relying on the edge of this presser foot is not always going to serve you well. But it can if you know how to make adjustments in your sewing machine. So the first thing we're going to use is this great presser foot that comes with your sewing machine and the manual. Yeah, go get the manual. Because my guess is in your manual, it's going to tell you there's a setting to adjust the position of your needle. A little bit to the left, middle, a little bit to the right. With doing that, hopefully you'll find a piecing or a quilting stitch setting that will get your needle in the exact position such that you can use this trusty presser foot and use the edge of it to get your 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so we're going to put this back on my sewing machine. There we go. Okay, so for now, my needle is right smack dab in the middle. That's not going to serve me well because if you'll find out, the width of my presser foot from the position of the needle over to the edge of it is more than a 1/2 inch. It's more like 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go over here and, oops, now I can't see it with my light. We're going to put, hold on here, get me the right setting, and we're going to do a QO2. QO2 on mine is adjusting my needle to the right with the intention of getting me a 1/4 inch by using the edge of my presser foot. I've cut 2 pieces of blue fabric 3 inches in size. Key thing, what you want to do is you want to practice this. So go find some fabric, leftovers, whatever. Choose a size. If you can only do 2 inches, fine, do a 2-inch cut. 3 inches just nice to show here and demonstrate. Key thing is know what size you cut it, because once we sew that scant 1/4 inch seam, we're going to want to press it and then measure it to see if it really measured up and the end result of those 2 pieces sewed together are the correct size. All right, so we're going to lower the presser foot right there on the edge, and I'm going to just sew there and leading my fabric, holding my fabric. A key thing, one of the things that used to get me, I suppose, a little bit in trouble in the past was I'd get to the edge of my presser foot here and I'd kind of let go of the fabric thinking, oh yeah, we're fine. Well, guess what? There's like a whole 1/2 inch between the edge of my presser foot and when the fabric hits that needle. That is plenty of space for that fabric to get wonky. And in that case, you're going to have a beautiful 1/4 inch seam and then all of a sudden, it's either too wide or too thin. So keep an eye on the edge of your fabric. Just kind of guide it along there all the way to the edge till your needle gets to the edge. And if you do that, you'll have a much better luck having a straight 1/4 inch seam all the way to the end. Okay, so we've got that done. We've got it in blue. So we're going to take that to the ironing board. I already did that. So here's the blue that I did with my presser foot just like this, and it should come out to be, yep, there we go. It is 5.5 because I had 2 3-inch pieces. 2 times 3 is 6 inches. And then I took a 1/4 inch seam from both of those fabrics. So in other words, I lopped off, if you will, 1/2 inch, meaning my finished piece should be 3 by 5.5. So if you do that with your machine setting like this and you don't get a 5.5 inch piece of fabric widthwise when you're done, well, you need to make a few tweaks. Now, some machines that are electronic have the ability to make a little adjustment in your stitch width. Well, your stitch width is straight, so if you adjust it a little, you're in fact just moving your needle a little. Check out your manual, see what you've got, and I'm sure with a little fine tuning and a little adjustments, you'll end up having a piece 5.5. You also want to make sure that it's pressed accurately. You don't want to have any of this overlapped or, not quite right. So make sure it's finely pressed and then check it out and make some adjustments. The next option is a 1/4 inch presser foot. Yep, my Baby Lock actually has a custom foot that I can purchase from them. If your machine manufacturer doesn't, or it's a little more expensive than you'd like to spend, go check out some universal feet. And most sewing machines have a short shank. Just make sure you understand what kind of shank you have, and you should be able to buy a universal 1/4 inch foot. Now, mine happens to have this handy dandy metal guide. There are other 1/4 inch presser foots that look a little different. Just Google it and find a 1/4 inch presser foot, or call your local fabric store and ask them, do they have one for the manufacturer of your machine? So we are going to flip over to that. Oh, and also when I do that, I need to get my presser foot or my needle position back to the center position, because that's the key thing with the 1/4 inch foot. I don't need to mess with my needle position every time, because with this presser foot, every time I turn on my sewing machine, I have to remember, adjust my needle position, because if I don't, I'm going to get a much fatter seam than I want. Okay, so now I've got my presser foot in there, and this time I have 2 pieces of red fabric. And both of these are 3 inches also. Make sure they're accurately put together. Well, that's a little wonky there. There we go. And Now for me, I just match up the edge of my fabric with my 1/4 inch guide. My sewing machine also, hang on here, also has a 1/4 inch marking right here on my bobbin case. So that's another marking that I can use a little bit further away from my foot. So we're going to just set that down, needle down. And this way I can guide it there, but then I can also help keep it straighter, because I have a tendency, I think, to let things list a little to the right, I guess, and my seams get a little wonky. So this helps me maintain it even straighter all the way to the edge. And now I've got a nice 1/4 inch seam. Now, go take that to the ironing board. And here we go. Here is my completed set of blocks. Once again, 2 3-inch blocks. 1/4 inch seam means it should be 5.25 inches. And we lay that out. There we go. There is my 5.5 inch block. So, my machine does a good job of piecing both the standard presser foot with some needle position changes and the 1/4 inch foot. I was watching a video recently where a woman had said, don't use the 1/4 inch presser foot. Just throw it out, don't use it. It is not accurate. And she actually showed with her particular sewing machine that when she sewed with the 1/4 inch foot, there was a significant discrepancy between that and using the standard presser foot with some needle position changes. I was really surprised. So I was curious. I generally don't seem to have a problem with my seams, but I thought, let's go test this out. And I did. And mine is accurate with both of them. But obviously, I could see on hers it wasn't. So keep that in mind. And that's why it is so important to set up your machine to get a 1/4 inch seam, sew it, take it to the ironing board, press it, make sure it's accurately pressed, and measure it. And that way you'll truly know. If you're getting a good 1/4 inch seam with this presser foot, keep using it. I'm going to switch that back because I'm going to show you something else too, in case your machine doesn't allow you to do a presser foot change. Somebody told me once when I was struggling with my 1/4 inch seam, and this is before I had the 1/4 inch foot. She said, use this foot. And this foot is, for me, it's clear. It's not a big open space in the middle. And if I put it on with adjusting my needle position, I end up with a lot more fabric underneath the foot. The presser foot has a lot more real estate keeping my fabric under the foot versus what I see here. So with this foot, she thought I would have better luck, especially when I get to the edges of my pieces and not have those ends getting wonky, and it would just be more accurate. And she was right. Once I made the right changes to my machine and kept with this foot, I was doing really well and had a good solid 1/4 inch seam. I'll admit though, I do like my 1/4 inch seam presser foot because then I don't have to mess and remember, oh yeah, set my 1/4 inch buttons on my needle position. Okay, so maybe you have an older machine that doesn't allow you to mess around with your needle position. No worries. Get your ruler, whatever size it is, 6.5, little, you want it fairly small, and you're going to put it here on your sewing machine. See, now for me, my sewing machine actually has a line there on my bobbin case, which shows me the needle position, the middle needle position. Also, let me drop this. My presser foot has a line in the middle of it as well that shows me my needle position. Hopefully yours does too. But we're going to put that back on here. What we're going to do is we're going to take this ruler and we're going to get here we go, right by that 5. There's a 1/4 inch marking. So we're going to put that underneath our presser foot and get it so that it's all the way under there. In fact, it's probably better to have more of it there. And then you're gonna push it down. For me, I can actually make a little adjustments, there we go, where I can see my 1/4 inch of my ruler matches up with the 1/4 inch the 1/4 inch of my ruler matches up with that center line that was marked on my bobbin case, and it matches up very, very nicely with that center mark in my presser foot. Maybe you don't have that. So in that case, you're going to want to put it under here very carefully, and then just use the manually turn the wheel on your sewing machine to get your needle to come down to make sure that it's right there. You don't want to put it too far. You don't want it to like clonk on your ruler, but just to make sure your needle is coming down on that 1/4 inch mark on the ruler. Okay, so I've got it coming down there. I marked on my presser foot, and then I've got that extra line there, which means this line here on the edge of my ruler is my 1/4 inch. That's where I want my fabric to be on. This is where your trusty blue painter's tape come in. Or green or red. I know, it comes in way more colors than blue anymore. Nice thing about the blue painter's tape is it's not overly adhesive or gunky, such that if you leave it on something, it's not going to leave a bit of a mess. So we're going to cut off a piece of it, and we're going to just put it right up against the edge of that ruler. Be very careful not to jostle your ruler, because you want that nice and straight. And oh, as I looked down on it, I realized I really didn't have that straight. So we're going to get it. There we go. There we go. So now I have a nice, you probably don't need it as long as I put it there, but now I have a marking. So we're going to get my needle back up, lift up my presser foot. So now I have a nice mark of where to put my fabric. So now as I sew my fabric, my 1/4 inch, I'm not messing with the needle position. I'm just going to line my fabric up with the edge of that blue tape, and there we go. And as you can see, it's not to the edge of my presser foot. My presser foot's not my edge. My blue painter's tape is. So then we can just leave that alone and just sew right along. And I'm not going to finish sewing that. So there you have it, and that you can mark that. Now the tricky thing with this is every time you've got to change your bobbin, you're going to need to lift that up, get it out of there. If you're like me, this contains a whole bunch of goodies in there, my other feet and like that. Well, luckily mine opens up pretty well with that I can slide it back in. So when you do that, just make sure excuse me, you're putting that back accurately. So you're going to do the same thing I did the other 2 times. Get 3-inch piece of fabric or whatever, sew the sides together, see if you've got it accurate. If you're not, adjust that tape a little bit to make sure it's exactly right. Some people don't like to butt the fabric up against the tape. So for me, because even with my 1/4 inch foot, I can sometimes have things, you know, shift one way or another once it gets past here. I think I would like be slicing things if I was a golfer. So I have a piece generally on mine, and I just threw that tape on there using the center. And then what I would do is I'd go back here and get my center, line it up again with my center of my 1/4 inch, and then get out like a micron pen, and then just mark on it. And there we go. And so now I'm using my mark. Oops, got that crooked at the end. Make sure that's accurate. Then I can use that black mark instead of the edge of the blue tape. use whatever works for you. You know, so even though I have my quarter inch foot on, whoops, I like to have this tape on my sewing machine. That way, even down here, I'm making sure it's straight as I feed it into my quarter inch here. So I'm not waiting till it gets here to determine it's a quarter inch or have it shift. Instead, I make sure I'm feeding it well. This works really good if you're doing strip piecing that are very long. I think that covers it. You've got your 3 different ways to use your general purpose presser foot or your quarter inch presser foot using manual setting of a line or manipulating with your needle position on your sewing machine or just using the quarter inch foot, and there you've got it. Whatever way you use, as long as it works and as long as you're confident using it and you're getting and have shown that you're getting an accurate quarter inch seam, that is all that matters. Don't let anybody convince you there is a better way, because if you're getting an accurate quarter inch seam and you're happy with your piecing, that's all that matters. Now remember, if you should happen to get a different sewing machine, or maybe you have 2 different sewing machines. I have friends that use a sewing machine at home and then have a different sewing machine when they go to quilt camp, because they take a lighter weight one to quilt camp. If that's the case, make sure you know what your quarter inch seam is on both of those, because they might be slightly different and you need to make adjustments. So if you started sewing on one machine at home and you took the same project to quilt camp, you want to make sure both of them are giving you an accurate quarter inch seam. That should help you end up with some beautiful quilt blocks that you're happy with. Take care. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to stay up to date with all the new stuff I'm dropping, subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell icon. That way you'll be notified anytime I drop a new video into the channel. I'll be posting new videos every Friday morning with lots of great stuff that you aren't going to want to miss. I also would love to have you join me in my Facebook group. I have a private Facebook group that we're sharing things about life that I love. Quilting, needlework, machine embroidery, wine, books, a lot of fun stuff. So I'd love to have you join me over there. You can find it at facebook.com/group/lifefulfilled. I also can be found at the normal ways, Pinterest, Instagram, etc. You can find in the description below all the links of the places to find me, including wendyjhaney.com. If you found this video helpful, I would love to have you give me a thumbs up, drop me a comment, let me know what you'd like to see. Take care, and thanks for watching.